Hi everyone, and welcome to this video about the psychodynamic conception of personality. So today we're going to be tackling exactly who Sigmund Freud was. We're going to be talking about his theory of the structure of the mind and also his theory of personality. So when we look at the SACE curriculum, these are the key ideas and the areas of learning that we are covering today. And you know that this conception of personality is just one of three. So first up, we need to define personality. So personality is the relatively enduring set of personal characteristics that influence our behaviour. And it's really important that you make that distinction there, that they have to be relatively enduring characteristics that are unique to us, and they also have to impact our behaviour and who we are as a person. So, Sigmund Freud, you have probably heard this name before. He is very well known, and he's often referred to as the father of the psychodynamic conception of personality. He's probably one of the most well-known psychologists in history, and his whole theory at the time was quite groundbreaking because what he talked about was this idea of the unconscious mind. He was really overly concerned with what kind of unconscious desires or thoughts or fears drive our behaviour, and that was really what he focused on. And he also focused on this idea that our past experiences, often from childhood, they affect who we are as adults and how we behave. So the core theories that we're going to speak about today are those in blue. So we're going to talk about his structure of the mind and his theory of personality. In the next video, we'll tackle his defense mechanisms and stages of psychosexual development, two very interesting theories. And we'll also talk about Carl Jung in the next video. So first up, theory of the mind. So Freud thought that our mind could be broken down into three different sections. So he thought we had an unconscious, a preconscious, and a conscious. So I'm going to speak about them from bottom to top. So if we think about our conscious here, these are thoughts that we're always aware of. This is what our brain is currently focused on, what we're thinking about, and we're very aware of what they are. Our preconscious sits just above that here. These are thoughts that we're not immediately aware of. So they're thoughts that we don't currently have, but they can be easily recalled. So an example might be if I asked you what you did on the weekend. You weren't thinking about that before, but you're thinking about that now. So in our preconscious, Freud thought that we held things like memories and stored information. Now, this one here is obviously the big one. So this is what Freud was really concerned with. He said we had this unconscious, which was this part of our mind that was completely inaccessible to us. He thought that it could not be recalled. We would never be able to be immediately aware of our unconsciousness. So this theory of the mind is often represented as an iceberg. And you can see up here at the conscious level, we have thoughts and perceptions. At the preconscious level, we have memories and stored knowledge. And then these are some examples of what Freud thought made up our unconscious mind. So you might like to pause here and have a bit of a look, and you might start to understand why this particular theory was quite controversial. Okay, that was the theory of the mind. So he thought the mind was broken down into three pieces. Now we move to the theory of personality. So he thought personality was also broken down into three components, which is why it can be hard to remember the difference between the two. But when you think of personality, think that everybody has these three components that kind of make us all a little bit different. He thought we had an id, an ego, and a superego. So according to him, the id was based on something called the pleasure principle. It's all about getting what we want. It's selfish. It wants what it wants. It's also driven by our unconscious instincts, and it's also really strong in babies. So if you think about babies, they want what they want, and they want it now. They want to be fed, they want to be changed, and they want to sleep. And the reason that Freud thought the id was the strongest in babies was that it gets their needs met. Okay, so it serves a purpose. Okay. I'm going to skip the ego for now and go down to the superego. When you think superego, I like to remember it by thinking kind of like a superhuman. I like to think about someone who is completely driven by what's the right thing to do. Okay, they're driven by principles and morals. They're like a conscience, kind of like the angel that sits on your shoulder telling you to do the right thing. Note here that it is conscience, not conscious. So two different words. In the middle sits our ego. So Freud thought that the ego is based on reality, and it has to try and juggle what the id wants and what the superego wants. And it has to kind of figure out, okay, well, what's going to work in reality? And it uses reasoning to make decisions that will work in reality. And you can see that those three components represented here. Now, Freud thought that in a healthy person, the ego is the strongest because they're able to balance out the three different components, make decisions that will work in reality. Okay, this is quite handy for myself, just to remember the three parts. If you've seen The Dark Knight, you will see three of the main characters of the film presented here. So if we start at the beginning, we have our id. So this is presented or characterized as the Joker. So the Joker wants what he wants all the time. He wants to be entertained. He does things because he feels like it, because it will cause chaos, and he enjoys it. Okay. At the complete other side, we have Harvey Dent, and he's represented at the start of the film as a white knight type of character. He's highly moral, he always wants to do the right thing, and he wants his city to be perfect. In the middle here, we then have the Dark Knight, or our Batman character. So we know that he's not perfect. He breaks the law, he hurts people. But as an audience member, we see him as someone who's doing the right thing for the situation at the time. And so we see his behaviours as being grounded heavily in reality and what will work at the time. So what you might like to do now is have a think of a character or a celebrity that might fit these three components of personality. Try and break it down and try and work out which one fits where and how you would explain which is the strongest within them. Okay, next up, so next video we will be finishing off some of Freud's theories. We'll be talking about defense mechanisms and his famous stages of psychosexual development, and we'll also talk about Freud and how to answer some essay questions or some exam questions. Bye.